Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at the Hebrew participle in our continuing study of biblical languages. A participle is a verbal adjective that almost seems like a contradiction in terms. It's one of those ing words, at least in English. Uh, think about it this way: it has a stem, in this case, basically the cal stem. It has a voice. It can be either active or passive. It has some sort of verbal action in the word. It has gender. It has number. It describes the noun. That's the adjective part. And yet there's verbal action to it. You can talk about, and here are some examples. The weeping man tells you what kind of man that is. So that is, in a sense, it's acting like an adjective where it describes a noun. But notice the weeping part, that's actually action. And so it combines both the verb idea, but also the noun idea in describing the noun. The weeping man, you can say a man is weeping, and that can be a different sort of adjective as well. And finally, the one who weeps. So all of those are different ways to see a participle. We're going to see the way those appear in Hebrew. Now, there's three uses of the participle. First of all, the attributive use. This modifies the noun. As I said, the speaking prophet is describing the prophet, but notice it's describing him in that it's giving him that attribute, that one who is speaking, and therefore it's describing the prophet and who he is, the quality of the noun, even though that quality, that description, has sort of action to it. It always comes after the noun that it modifies. So in English, we say the speaking prophet. We would say in Hebrew, the prophet, the speaking one. So the noun comes first. That's how you can tell it's the attributive use of the participle. The noun comes first, and then the participle comes after that. It matches the noun in gender, number, and a definite article if the noun has a definite article, or the lack thereof. If the noun doesn't have a definite article, then neither will the participle. Here's an example. Thus says the Lord who made the earth. Now, that's how we've translated it. But actually, I would recommend that we can translate thus says the making Lord. Notice the words the earth in New American Standard are italicized. That's the translators telling you the word the earth isn't actually in the text. It might be understood, the making Lord, what did he make? Well, he made the earth, but that's not actually in the Hebrew text. And so notice Adonai, Asa, and um, it's describing Usa. I'm sorry, it's describing the um, the making Lord. And yes, it's the Lord who made it. That's how we usually render it. But sometimes you want to stretch it a little bit just to see bad English but good Hebrew, just to get a feel for it. And then we'll go back and it's okay. The way they've translated the Lord who made the earth, that's fine. That's appropriate. That's understandable. And that's what translators seek to do. And so notice I rendered it the making Lord. And I like that. I like that because it's a description of God. It's an attribute of God. He is the making Lord. That's who he is. Here's another example. This one's from Numbers chapter 13, verse 28. Ha'am, that's the term for the people. Am is people. Ha is, remember, the definite article. And because it has a definite article, remember that the participle has, the next participle, the participle has to have the definite article as well. And so ha'am, ha-yesh, the people. Notice the dwelling, but actually that's not what we're render it. The people who were dwelling, the dwelling people, be'aretz, in the land or in the earth. And so we can call it the people who were dwelling in the earth, the dwelling people. It's those sorts of people, the ones that are dwelling in the land. A third one here is from Deuteronomy chapter 2 and verse 24. We have Adonai Eloheka. That means the Lord your God. Esh. There's no verb here. So we sort of insert, Ish is a word for fire, this idea he is a fire, and Okela, he is a consuming fire. It's describing what kind of fire it is. Notice there was no definite article for fire, so there's no definite article for consuming. They match up. Next, we have the predicate use of the participle. This asserts something about the noun. It tells us something about it. For example, the prophet was speaking. Notice the ing word, but it's, we could have just said the prophet spoke, but it's describing something that he was doing. It matches the noun in gender and number. That's quite usual. And this time it follows the noun. Well, we saw that before. It follows the noun. Finally, we're going to have the definite article here doesn't have to match. Remember we said with the attributive, it has to match. Now it does not have to match. And it takes the tense from the context. Is it past tense, present, future? Depends on what the context is doing. Here is an example. We have Vahar. Vahar is and the mountain. Bo'er. It was burning Beish in fire. Notice it was burning. That's the participle. And what was burning? Not the fire. It was the mountain that was doing the burning. In fire is going to be a further description of that. And so it's describing what it was doing. Here's another example. This time we see Samuel and Samuel, Samuel, excuse me, Shakav, Shokav. Actually, it's he was lying down. That's my participle, and Behekal in the temple. Notice it's not the temple doing the action. It's Samuel, and it's describing just what he's doing. And so, very simple use of the participle, the predicate use of the participle. We have the attributive, the predicate, and finally the substantive use. It functions as a noun. See, in the predicate use, it was actually almost functioning like a verb. Now it's going to be functioning as a noun. We can call it, and here's an example. Instead of the prophet was speaking, it's the speaking one. But notice the word prophet isn't there, so you can actually take the noun away, and the participle will function as if the noun was there, but it doesn't need to be. So a substantive participle can do anything a noun can do. It's coming almost to replace the noun. Let's look at an example. We have Zekor, remember, Eth Barakah, remember, it's saying remember the one who created, or your creator, by Yom in the days, Bahore Theka, in the days of your youth. This is from Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 1. Notice the one creating, that's it's the cal participle of the term bara. So remember the one who created. Well, who did the creating? Well, that's the Lord, but you don't need the word the Lord. It's describing him as the creator, and that's how we usually translate it. Remember the creating one, but we usually say remember your creator, and that works. And notice it's your creator. It's the one creating you. That's that last suffix indicates that it's for you, masculine, plural. So it has that masculine plural ending. Not that the creator is plural, but the ones that he did create is plural. Here's another example. This one is from the Song of Solomon, chapter 8 and verse 13. We have the cal participle masculine plural of yashav, and so we read ha yushevet. That's the plural version. Um, and so it's the one sitting, begenim, the one sitting in the gardens. Um, the sitting one. And notice, again, it's functioning as a plural. You see both where the word itself, yeshav, is just to sit, but it's instead of to sit. That's not a noun, but it has turned it into it's going to function as a noun as the one who is sitting, even though there's no noun there. This is a verb, but it's a participle, and so functioning as a noun. Here's one from 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verse 22, where David left his baggage in the care of the baggage keeper. Now, there's no word for care there. Instead, if it's al yad, on the hand, and it means that he's got it in his hand, so he's taking care of it. And then the keeper, the uh, sh- uh, shomer, that's actually from the verb shamar. Shamar is to guard or to keep, just like in the garden where Adam was placed to guard it and to keep it. Same term that's used here. The keeper of the ha-kolim, the keeper of the koli, the baggage. Um, and so the keeper, notice that was a verb, but it's a participle, and so being in that substantive use, it can function as a noun. The same Actually, it's the same word here, just different use of it. This is Psalm chapter 121, verse 1. Behold, he who keeps, that's our old friend Shamar, but it is the participle, so we go Shumer. Notice the sound actually has that participle sound. Instead of it's o-eh. So Shamer, the keeper Israel, the keeper of Israel. And we translate he who keeps, and that's okay, that works. But really, I think a little bit more accurate would be to say, behold, the keeper of Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Now, common nouns that are really substantive participles are words. We learn them as vocabulary words known. Here's Cohen. The word means a priest. But it's actually one who is doing priestly duties. It's actually a participle, and we're so used to it, we learn it as if it's a noun. Technically, it's not, but we treat it as a noun, and it functions just like one. So the term Cohen, that's one who does priestly duties. And we refer to that as a priest. Um, uh, Ehev, an enemy, is one who does enemy stuff. And but if it's an adjective, and so he is one who enemies us. And that's not really an English word, but it functions as a noun. And then shafat is a judge, is one who judges. Shafat is to judge, so shofet is a judge, one who's judging one, we would say. Okay, we finally come to the end. This is going to be a short Bible study. We're going to look at one passage, Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, just the first part of the verse. I will bless those who bless you. Here's what we want to look at. And the one who curses you, I will curse. The one who curses you, that is this term, kalelka. And it is a peel participle, masculine singular, of kalal, which it's got a little suffix on the end. That's the part about the one who curses you. Remember, this is a substantive participle because instead of giving it's the cursing one, but it's the one cursing you. It's functioning as a noun. It's describing that individual, the cursing one, with the term kalal. Kalal means to insult, to diminish, give a slight. Curse works, but it's a different word from the term that is right next to it when he says, the one cursing you, I will curse. So, unfortunately, we have the same translation, the one who curses you, I will curse. The one, maybe it would be better to say the one who insults or speaks evil of you. Of course, there's a separate way of saying that. Um, the one who slights you, maybe that's not strong enough. The one who does something against you, I will curse. And we have a separate word. This is roar. This time it's the cal imperfect, first common singular of arar. So notice kalal versus arar is two different words. And this is just the basic word for a curse. So um, doesn't really change the meaning. It's just a slight. I would say it's maybe a shade of meaning. You just see it slightly different when you hear a little bit different, and that's the advantage of studying this in Hebrew. Sometimes it's not going to entirely change the meaning, but you will have this just a slight shade. Um, the rabbis, I think I've commented upon this, the rabbis described reading the scriptures through a translation as kissing through a veil. And what we're trying to do is just briefly remove the veil and feel the touch. In this case, the touch of two different terms that are rendered cursing, and yet there's a slight difference between the two.